morning everybody. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage making a video for you folks today. This is part of my purchasing series. I have started to show sewing machines when I first get them, and just to kind of give you guys an idea of what I've been finding and why I thought it was a good idea to purchase. What you're looking at here is a Singer, obviously, and it is a Singer 15. And it is a treadle machine, and those of you who know treadles will recognize the long leather belt here. I have never come across one of these though, and I say that because this particular Singer was one that I found. It was listed for sale. It was being sold by the granddaughter of the original owner, and when I purchased it, I saw a picture of it, and I had seen, in fact, I've actually owned in the past a Singer treadle that had this kind of look to it. And before I tell you why this machine is so unusual, I just want to show you what I found here. I've opened the machine up and set it up into the table, and this particular treadle table, of course, has a piece that fits flush into the table when the machine is folded under. And then to open this, there's a little lever in the back of the table. So it has a very clean, smooth look. And it looks quite different underneath, or at least partially different, than a lot of the treadles we're used to seeing. Treadle machines, of course, were extremely popular at the beginning of sewing machine history, at least for home sewing machine history. And they've been around a long time. Many of you may have seen a treadle, even if you don't own one. And you often see the very fancy grill work underneath. Let's take a look here. I'll show you underneath the table itself to kind of show you some of the differences. Now guys, I've moved the camera so you can see a little more clearly. And this is interesting. If you look at the base of this treadle table, I've actually owned one before, and I had forgotten what the exact year was. And the one that I had that did not look like the traditional model, you will notice that the supports of this treadle table do not have a lot of the elaborate scroll work in cast iron that a lot of the treadle tables have that we've seen. Of course, treadle tables became less popular once electricity came to sewing machines, and that was happening beginning in the 1920s. And so anyway, you saw a lot of treadle tables before then. But the later treadle tables, you'll notice it still has the cast iron pedal that says Singer on it. It has the giant treadle wheel, or you could call it a pulley, I suppose. And so you look at it, you think, okay, that's a Singer treadle, but it looks different. What I have noticed in the past is if you look at the legs that are supporting this, or the pedestal stands, if you will, you'll notice that they're made of wood. The last treadle table I got from this era, it actually had steel supports, but this one has wood supports, a wood tabletop, and of course it still maintains the cast iron mechanicals, which was really interesting to me. I had never seen this before, but again, you know, I haven't seen a lot of treadle tables. I thought, well, maybe this was just a different design, and it was. But there was something extra unique about this treadle, and when I ended up finding this, I didn't realize until afterwards that the original owner was not originally from North America. So let's take a further look, and I'll kind of just show you. We'll go through what I found when I got the machine, and why I think it's unique, at least for me, to have ever come across one. Okay, so again, we're looking back at the machine itself. It looks like a Singer 15 because it is. It has a fluted side plate, so it's a later model than, say, you know, a 1905 treadle, for example, which would not have had the reverse. Of course, we have the reverse lever here, along with the stitch length regulator. So we're getting into the latter part of the Singer 15 treadle history. Of course, we know the 15 would be made for many years to come. And I literally have not taken any fabric out. This was sitting on on the bed of the machine, and I don't know if someone was testing it or they may have just been using this little pad as a way to, I've often mentioned, or I think I've mentioned, you always want to store your sewing machine with the pressure foot down, because the spring that provides the tension, it gets to rest more, I guess you'd say. But anyway, I was looking at the machine and everything still looked, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. But then I went and looked at the serial number, which is EG750767. And when I looked that up on the serial number postings for Singer, what I find is that it was registered at Singer's factory in Germany in 1951. Now, that's, 1951. Some people are surprised that treadle tables were made well into the 20th century, when people were, of course, using electric sewing machines. Electric had become the new normal, the new technology. And, after 30 years, you still got treadle machines. And there could have been any number of reasons for this. You have to remember that large parts of the world, even into the 1950s, had not necessarily gotten the infrastructure for electricity. And of course, Singer was a global company. They sold machines all over the world. And even today, treadle tables still have a demand in some parts of the world where people are trying to sew and they don't have reliable electricity. So some of those people try Chinese copies, but others seek out one of the many surviving Singer treadles, or treadles, period. It doesn't have to be a Singer. Singer just was by far the largest distributor and maker of sewing machines during the vintage era. So anyway, I was continuing to look at this machine. It looked like, it had been sitting a while, but everything was freely moving here. It needs to be, I'm going to be disassembling and taking out and cleaning and relubricating it, obviously, as I do with every machine. But even the treadle belt is still good. And of course, I loosen the treadle belt to when the machine folds, the treadle belt loosens. And but anyway, I wanted to show this to you guys because when I was here looking at the table, I'm going to shift the camera angle so you guys can see. So like I do any time, and I always mention to you all, always remember to ask when you're buying a machine, any machine, treadle or not, were there sewing accessories? Were there any sewing things that went with it that, a bag or a box or anything? Always ask, okay? Because a lot of people who have these machines, they don't necessarily sew, right? This machine had been kept by the granddaughter of the original owner because, she'd inherited it and it had a lot of personal meaning for her. She decided at some point she was moving and it was time to put it back into use, I suppose. And so anyway, she listed it for sale, and I got the machine, and as I mentioned to you all, you never know what you can find either in a sewing machine carrying case, either in the person that owns it may have always ask again for a bag or a box of any kind of sewing accessories, or just say sewing stuff, because a lot of people don't know what to call the various things that come. You wouldn't use the word notions, okay? Sewing notions is something that those of you who sew know what that term means, but not everyone knows that term. So anyway, I get the machine. I'm looking at, in fact, I took the tray out when I transported the table to make sure the tray didn't slosh around. But I didn't have time to go through it specifically. I was looking at the machine, and I'll show you guys what I pulled out of here. There's just some old samples of fabric. This is not unusual to see in a sewing machine. And here, tangled up with some thread because it's been sitting and I haven't had a chance to go through all of this. This, of course, is a ruffler foot. Many of you will find these when you get Singer machines. Ruffling was a very popular thing. If you can look at decor magazines and fashion magazines from any decade, and you can see the kinds of fashions that people were making at home, and that of course determined a lot of the accessories and tools that they wanted. But as I kept going through, I started seeing something I'm not used to seeing. Now it says here, accessories for 15K machine. Well, 15K would suggest that it was made in Great Britain. And yet, the serial number says otherwise, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So this is what I saw, and again, many of you will find accessories sometimes. You're fortunate if you do. They're not rare. This is an adjustable hammer foot, a felling foot or rolled hem foot. We've got a shirring foot. Again, shirring is for gathering. Remember all the pleats and ruffles people have in their clothes. Here is a zipper foot that's part of it. The rest of the attachment is in here somewhere. A slotted binder foot. You want to put binding around a tablecloth or a baby's bib, etc. A seam guide. Even things like the seam guides were machined and polished beautifully. There's nothing cheap about the way they used to make these things. But the reason, and a lint brush, a vintage lint brush. This is all wonderful provenance and history with the machine. But I am not used to seeing a Singer accessory box that's this long. They normally are about this long. I haven't measured them, actually. I'd have to go back and do that. But I thought, well, that's odd. Never seen one. And then when I saw this, this is when I realized I didn't have something I had come across before, and that is because this sewing machine user manual is for this machine. It's for the 15K88, but it's in German. The entire manual is in German. And so I'm going to, I can only theorize that the original owner maybe had come from Germany to North America, and when she brought the machine, she bought it in Germany, and then of course she had the German manual, and she brought this over when she immigrated to North America. Because I've never seen, I'm sure you can find them online, but I've never seen in the US or Canada a German Singer user manual. Now these may be common in Europe. I'm not suggesting it's super rare. It's rare for me to ever see one. And it's unusual, but it makes a lot of sense actually. And you might think, well, what's up with the 15K? I believe that this machine may have been made in Germany if the Singer factory there had been able to be up and running. Remember, it's registered 1951, and 1951 is only 6 years, between 5 and 6 years after the end of the Second World War. And so it would have been, a lot of Germany was being rebuilt at the time. It's also possible that the manual was sourced, that Singer had German manuals, and you could also see why treadle tables particularly would have been extremely valuable and useful when the war ends, because it takes quite a few years to rebuild the infrastructure of Germany and all the other countries in Europe that have been devastated by the damage from the war. And so treadle tables would have been, would have had a day in the sun there. Even here's 1951. It's very possible that there were certainly, if not in the large cities, certainly out in the countryside, there were people that did not have electricity. Maybe they never had, or maybe, again, it was going to take quite a while to rebuild the infrastructure throughout Europe. And so that is kind of my thinking why this machine was being sold. And it's registered as brand new, 1951. It was not a rebuild. And so I believe it was made in the German Singer factory, which I cannot remember if the one that they had, the original one they had, I think they may have had more than one, may have been destroyed or seriously damaged in the war. But again, here it is. It says EG, that tells me it was made in Germany, and the German manual also says that. Now, the box that says Singer 15K, it's very possible that, well, gosh, they had to, remember, the Allies were occupying huge chunks of Europe, and it's very possible that the Singer factory in Scotland, even though it had been bombed, maybe they were able to still produce items. I don't know. It's also possible that this was backstock, because you have to remember, when the war starts, people need to sew, but it's possible that there was extra inventory. But I don't know that these specific attachments were made in Germany. I'll have to do a little bit more research to see. see what those numbers represent. But K normally means Kilbowie, Scotland. But anyway, I just wanted to share with all of you, I have never come across a sewing machine with a manual in another language, or I don't think I have. I might have seen a manual for a Necchi machine in Italian, but that would have been rare though, because when Necchi sold machines in North America, all of their manuals were in English. So I just wanted to let you guys see this, that treadles were still a thing. In fact, even after the 50s, I'll have to go back and check when Singer made their last treadle, and they made them a lot longer than you would think. Again, there were parts of the world that needed treadles, that they didn't have either any electricity or reliable electricity. It's hard for us to imagine today, but that was actually the case even before the war and all the damage it caused. So I believe today there are people around the world who still use treadle machines, not only as hobbyists and because they enjoy it because of the heritage, but because they have to. They may be in parts of the world where they can't count on on a fuel generator to give them power. So there you go, guys. This is an unusual find for me, and I wasn't even expecting it. I just saw a treadle. I thought, oh, it'd be nice to restore a treadle. But here you go. It's a German Singer 15 treadle with a manual that says 15K88 on it in German. And anyway, I just thought I would share it with you. I hope you folks have a great day, and watch out for the next video.